My husband celebrated in the courtroom hallway because he thought he had just taken $1 million from me in the divorce. He hugged his lawyer. He kissed his girlfriend on the forehead. He smiled at his mother like a boy who had finally brought home the trophy she always believed he deserved. Then he looked at me across the marble floor and said, "You should have settled when I offered you kindness." Kindness. That was what Adrienne Cole called leaving me with almost nothing after 12 years of marriage, 3 years of unpaid work in his company, 2 children I had raised through his late nights, and a public divorce he had turned into a performance. He had fought for the house, the retirement accounts, the business shares, the savings, the investment property, even the car my grandmother helped me buy before our wedding. He had stood in court and described me as dependent, emotional, and financially confused, though I was the one who had quietly fixed his books for years. And that morning, when the temporary division looked like it was leaning his way, he thought he had won. He thought I was finished. He thought Naomi Bennett had no one behind her. Then the judge returned to the bench with a sealed document in his hand, looked over his glasses, and asked one question that made Adrienne stop smiling. "Mr. Cole, who is your wife's father?" The courtroom went silent. Not confused silent. Dangerous silent. The kind of silence that falls when a door opens in a room nobody knew had another entrance. Adrienne turned slowly toward his lawyer. His lawyer frowned. My lawyer, Vivian Hart, sat beside me with her hands folded calmly on the table. Too calmly. That should have been his warning. The judge repeated, "Mr. Cole, I asked you a question. Who is your wife's father?" Adrienne blinked. "I don't understand how that's relevant, Your Honor." The judge looked at the document again. "I believe it may be very relevant." Adrienne forced a laugh. Naomi's father was not part of this marriage. I kept my eyes forward. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my hands. For 12 years, Adrienne had believed my father was a poor man who had died when I was young. That was the story everyone knew. That was the story I had allowed, because it was easier than explaining a truth my own mother had spent most of her life hiding. My father had not died poor. My father had died powerful. And before he died, he built a trust so quietly and so carefully that even my husband, who thought he knew every weak place in my life, never saw it. The judge looked at Adrienne and said, "The court has received verified documentation regarding the Bennett Legacy Trust and the separate property protections connected to Mrs. Cole's premarital assets. I want an explanation as to why assets originating from that trust have been represented by your side as marital property." Adrienne's face changed. Only a little at first. A tightening around the mouth. A flicker in the eyes. The smile disappeared, but pride tried to hold its shape. His lawyer stood quickly. "Your Honor, we were not aware of any such trust." Vivian stood too. "Your Honor, that is difficult to accept, given that Mr. Cole's financial disclosures included transfers from accounts linked to entities he claimed were marital business income, despite repeated requests for clarification." Adrienne looked at me then. Really looked. For the first time that day, there was no performance in his eyes. Only fear. His mother, Patricia, leaned forward in the gallery, her pearl necklace tight against her throat. His girlfriend, Cassandra Vale, stopped holding his arm. That was how I knew things had shifted. People who love power can smell when it leaves the room. The judge placed the document on the bench. "Mrs. Cole, is your father Elias Bennett?" A murmur moved through the courtroom. Adrienne's lawyer turned toward me. Patricia gasped. Cassandra whispered something under her breath. I felt Vivian's hand touch my arm once. "Steady." I stood. "Yes, Your Honor." The judge nodded. "Founder of Bennett Meridian Holdings?" "Yes, Your Honor." Adrienne's mouth fell slightly open. Because he knew that name. Everyone in our city knew that name. Bennett Meridian Holdings was not just a company, it was a quiet empire. Real estate, logistics, hospitality, private equity, medical infrastructure, properties across 5 states, investments hidden behind boring company names and clean paperwork. For years, Adrienne had chased people connected to Bennett Meridian without knowing he had been married to the founder's daughter. Not publicly acknowledged, not on magazine covers, not seated at charity galas, but legally, completely, protected. The judge looked at Adrienne again. "Mr. Cole, did you know this?" Adrienne's voice came out smaller. "No, Your Honor," Vivian said. He knew enough to attempt to claim assets funded by the trust. His lawyer snapped. "Objection!" The judge raised one hand. "Counsel, sit down. We are going to take this carefully." Carefully. That word landed like thunder, because Adrienne had spent months trying to rush the divorce through before I could untangle what he had moved, touched, used, and claimed. He thought speed would exhaust me. He thought shame would silence me. He thought my quiet meant empty. He thought wrong. Before I continue, tell me where you are watching from tonight, and if someone has ever celebrated taking from you because they did not know who protected your foundation, stay with me. Because sometimes the person they call weak is carrying a name they were never worthy enough to hear. I grew up with my mother's last name, Bennett. That was the name on my school forms, my library card, my first job application, my college essays, and the small gold bracelet I wore until it broke in my 20s. My mother, Ruth Bennett, raised me in a modest apartment above a bakery on the east side of Charleston. We did not live like rich people. We did not even live like comfortable people most of the time. Our couch had one bad spring. Our kitchen table leaned slightly to the left. Our curtains were faded by the sun. When it rained hard, water crept under the back door, and my mother rolled towels against the frame like we were fighting a small river. But we were never truly poor. I did not know that then. Children measure wealth by what they can see. I saw secondhand clothes, grocery coupons, my mother saying no to field trips if they cost too much, a small apartment, a mother who worked at a community clinic and came home with tired eyes. So I believed the life I saw was the whole truth. My father was a photograph in my mother's bedroom drawer. Elias Bennett. Tall, dark skin, serious eyes, a smile that looked like it had to fight its way through heavy thoughts. Whenever I asked about him, my mother gave the same careful answer. He loved you. He died before he could raise you. That was true, but not complete. My father had loved my mother when they were young, before money made him a target, and family politics turned his life into a battlefield. He came from nothing and built Bennett Meridian through intelligence, discipline, and a frightening ability to understand land before the market did. By the time I was born, his wealth had become dangerous. Not because wealth itself is evil. Because people around wealth often begin to treat a child like a future key. My mother told me the full story only when I turned 25. Until then, she protected me by hiding me. No surname connection to his corporate life. No public inheritance. No fancy schools that could draw attention. No trust fund lifestyle. No photographs at events. No introductions to relatives who loved assets more than blood. She said my father agreed. Before he died in a plane accident when I was 2, he signed legal documents creating the Bennett Legacy Trust. It protected money, property, and business interests for me, but under conditions. I would not receive control as a child. I would not become public. I would not be paraded in front of greedy relatives. The trust would support education, healthcare, housing, and future business development quietly until I was mature enough to understand the weight of the name. My mother carried that secret like a heavy bag for years. Sometimes I hated her for it. Not at first. At first I was shocked. Then angry. "You let me struggle," I said when she finally told me. She sat across from me at our old kitchen table, hands folded. "I let you learn how to live without thinking money would save your character. That sounds noble when you were the one deciding." Her face softened. "Yes, I could have gone to better schools." "You went to good schools. I could have had help." "You had help," quietly. I stared at her. That was when she explained the scholarships that were not really scholarships, the medical bill that disappeared, the landlord who never raised rent because a trust-owned housing fund quietly paid the difference. the college emergency grant that came after my financial aid gap. My life had been supported by my father's love in hidden ways. Not spoiled. Supported. There is a difference. I cried that night. Not because I suddenly felt rich, because I realized my father had been present in paperwork when he could not be present in person. My mother said, "The money is there, Naomi, but it is not your identity. It is a tool, and tools can build or destroy depending on the hand holding them." I promised her I would be careful. Then I met Adrienne. Adrienne Cole entered my life when I was 26, at a business leadership workshop where I was helping with event operations. He was handsome, confident, and hungry in a way I recognized because I had my own hunger too. But mine was quiet. His had lights around it. He wanted success to be seen. I wanted stability to be felt. At first, that difference seemed exciting. He spoke about building a consulting company that would help small medical suppliers compete for larger contracts. I understood operations and finance because I had studied both and worked in healthcare logistics. He had vision. I had structure. Together, we worked well. Too well. I helped him organize proposals, build pricing models, prepare investor packets, and understand compliance language. He told everyone I was brilliant. In the beginning. Later, he told people he had always been brilliant, and I had been supportive. That change did not happen overnight. Most betrayals are not a lightning strike. They are termites. Tiny at first. Easy to ignore. Then one day, the floor gives way. We married after 2 years. My mother liked Adrienne but did not trust him fully. She never said it directly before the wedding. She only asked questions. Does he listen when you say no? Does he know how much he needs your mind? Does he thank you when no one else is in the room? I became defensive. Mama, he loves me. She touched my cheek. I believe he loves how you make his life work. I am asking if he loves you when you stop working. That question irritated me, because it was too close to something I did not want to examine. I did not tell Adrienne about the full Bennett legacy trust. Not because I planned to deceive him, because the trust was complicated, private, and protected by legal agreements that even I was still learning to understand. My mother and Vivian Hart, who had become my attorney after I turned 25, advised caution. Marriage is love, Vivian told me, but disclosure is strategy. You tell him what he needs to know. You do not hand him a map to every door before he proves he respects locked rooms. So Adrienne knew I had some family trust support. He knew my father had left something. He knew I owned certain assets before marriage. He did not know the scale. He did not know the company names. He did not know that some of the small entities he dismissed as boring family paperwork were connected to Bennett Meridian. And he certainly did not know that the very building where he signed his first major client had once belonged to a trust entity connected to my father. At first, the secret did not matter. We lived modestly. We both worked. We built his company. We had 2 children, Lily and Micah. I kept my separate accounts separate. Our marital accounts handled household expenses. The trust paid for certain premarital assets and protected investments. Everything was clean, because Vivian was allergic to confusion. Adrienne respected that for a while. Then his company grew. And the more people praised him, the less he remembered who helped him stand. He began calling himself self-made in interviews. That word bothered me. Self-made. As if I had not sat beside him at midnight correcting financial projections. As if I had not introduced him to clinic administrators who trusted me. As if my mother had not watched the children during early investor meetings. As if our household had not bent around his ambition for years. When I said, "Be careful with that phrase," he laughed. "Naomi, don't be sensitive. It's branding." Branding became his excuse for everything. New suits, late dinners, private events, networking trips, a publicist, a nicer car, then Cassandra Vale. She was a brand strategist with a voice like silk over broken glass. She told Adrienne he had founder energy. She said his story needed a stronger feminine contrast in public spaces. She said I was grounding, but his image needed aspiration. Aspiration meant her. I saw it before he admitted anything. The way she touched his arm. The way he smiled at his phone. The way he started saying, I did not understand the pressure of visibility. The way his mother, Patricia, praised Cassandra's polish. Patricia Cole had never liked me deeply. She liked what I did for her son. She liked that I brought order, children, respectability, and quiet labor. But she wanted him seen beside someone more glamorous once the rooms got expensive. You are a good woman, Patricia once said, but men at Adrienne's level need wives who can move in certain circles. I looked at her. I built the road to those circles. She smiled sadly. But you do not look like the destination. I never forgot that. When the affair came out, Adrienne did not beg. That told me everything. He had already built his new story. He sat across from me in our dining room and said, "We have grown apart." I said, "No, you grew an audience." He sighed like I was making betrayal inconvenient. Cassandra was not just a girlfriend. She was part of his rebrand. She helped him prepare for life after me. New image, new home, new investor circle, cleaner narrative. But divorce required money. And Adrienne believed he deserved half of everything he had ever seen me touch. He thought my quiet assets were marital because he had benefited from my quiet for years. He thought the house should be sold. He thought the investment accounts should be divided. He thought my consulting income had funded certain assets. He thought the trust was small enough to bully. He thought wrong. The divorce filing was aggressive from the beginning. Adrienne's lawyer painted him as the visionary founder, and me as a wife who had enjoyed the lifestyle, stayed home more after children, and exaggerated my role in the company. I did not stay home. I worked. I raised children. I managed our home. I contributed to his business. I protected separate assets. But men like Adrienne know that if they say a woman was supportive enough times, people stop hearing strategic. His side demanded a settlement that would have given him nearly $1 million in assets tied to accounts he claimed were marital or commingled. They pushed hard. They threatened delays. They suggested that if I fought, I would be exposed as hiding wealth. That part was almost funny, because I was hiding wealth. But legally, ethically, premaritally, protected by trust structures older than our marriage and stronger than his ego. Vivian told me not to react. Let them make claims, she said. Claims are useful. They show appetite. Appetite? Yes. Greed leaves fingerprints. So we waited. We provided necessary disclosures. We objected where appropriate. We traced funds. We filed sealed documents. We asked the court to review the origins of certain assets privately because public exposure of trust details could harm business entities and my children's privacy. Adrienne took that as weakness. He started celebrating early. At a mediation session, he leaned back and said, "Naomi, you can't hide behind your mother forever." I smiled. "I'm not hiding behind my mother." He smirked. "No, I guess there's no father to hide behind." Vivian's pen stopped moving. Just for 1 second. Adrienne did not notice. I did. That sentence entered the record of my heart. No father to hide behind. My father had died when I was 2. He had left me protection Adrienne could not imagine. And Adrienne mocked his absence because he thought absence meant emptiness. That is the mistake arrogant people make. They assume what they cannot see does not exist. The temporary hearing was supposed to address asset control, business income, living arrangements, and legal fees while the divorce continued. Adrienne arrived like a man attending his own coronation. Navy suit, fresh haircut, Cassandra in cream, Patricia in pearls, his lawyer carrying binders. My mother sat behind me quietly. Ruth Bennett looked older now, but her eyes were still strong. She wore a simple blue dress and held her handbag on her lap with both hands. She had warned me. She had protected me. And she had come to watch the man who underestimated both of us. The morning started badly. Adrienne's lawyer argued smoothly that the lifestyle during marriage had been built through Adrienne's business success, that I had enjoyed benefits, that certain assets had been used in ways that blurred lines, and that temporary division should prevent me from controlling funds unfairly. He made it sound reasonable. That is what skilled lawyers do. Vivian responded calmly, but she did not reveal everything yet. She said certain assets were separate, traceable, and protected. She said we had provided sealed documentation. She said Adrienne's side was making assumptions based on access rather than ownership. The judge listened, then called a recess to review documents. That was when Adrienne celebrated in the hallway. "You're done, Naomi," he said softly as he passed me. "You should have settled." I looked at him. "Did Cassandra write that line for you?" His face tightened. Cassandra touched his arm. "Don't engage," she whispered, as if I were the problem. Patricia looked at my mother. "Ruth, I know this must be hard, but your daughter could have avoided embarrassment." My mother stood slowly. She was not tall, but something about her made Patricia step back. "My daughter was raised not to fear rooms where truth has paperwork," she said. Patricia frowned. "What does that mean?" My mother smiled. "You'll hear it soon." And she did. After recess, the judge returned with the sealed document. Then came the question, "Who is your wife's father?" From there, the whole room changed. The judge did not decide everything that day. Court does not work like a thunderclap, no matter how much people wish it did. But he did enough. He paused any transfer of assets Adrienne had claimed from trust-linked accounts. He ordered a deeper forensic review of alleged commingling. He warned Adrienne's lawyer that mischaracterizing separate property could have consequences if done knowingly. He asked for additional documentation regarding how Adrienne's business had benefited from entities connected to the Bennett Legacy Trust. That last part made Adrienne's lawyer go pale, because Adrienne had not only tried to claim my money, he had built parts of his success on opportunities quietly made possible by my family's network, not handed to him, not as a gift, but introduced through me, supported through credibility I carried, connected to rooms he never would have entered without my labor and my last name hidden behind it. Now he had forced the court to look. Adrienne whispered to his lawyer, "What is Bennett Meridian?" His lawyer whispered back, too quietly for me to hear. But I saw the answer hit. Cassandra's face changed next. She knew. Maybe not everything, but enough to understand that the man she thought she was upgrading had been married to the daughter of the empire he had been chasing. Patricia looked like she might faint. My mother sat behind me, calm and still. Vivian leaned toward me and whispered, "Breathe." I had forgotten. After court adjourned, Adrienne approached me in the hallway. No swagger now, no celebration, just panic wearing a suit. "Naomi," he said, "why didn't you tell me?" I looked at him. "Tell you what?" "About your father. You said he wasn't relevant." His face reddened. "I didn't know." "No. You didn't ask with respect. You only assumed with arrogance." Cassandra stood behind him, eyes sharp. "Adrienne, we should go." I looked at her. "Yes, Adrienne. Listen to the woman who thought she was getting a self-made man." Her face tightened. Adrienne said, "This changes things." I smiled. "No, it reveals them." He swallowed. "We need to talk. Speak to Vivian. I'm your husband." "Temporarily." He flinched. Good. For months, he had made me feel like the one being discarded. Now the word sat on him. Temporary. The forensic review became a nightmare for Adrienne. Not because I wanted revenge, because his claims opened doors he should have left closed. If he had accepted a fair divorce, he would have left with dignity, shared custody, appropriate marital division, and the life he said he wanted with Cassandra. But greed wanted $1 million, so greed got audited. The review showed that several assets Adrienne claimed as marital were fully traceable to the Bennett Legacy Trust or premarital accounts. He had no claim to them. It also showed that his company had benefited from unpaid labor I performed during its formation. Emails, drafts, proposal files, client introductions, operating models, pricing sheets, and compliance templates all carried my work. That did not mean I owned his entire company, but it meant his story of being self-made was fiction with a good haircut. Worse for him, certain early contracts he claimed came solely through his business development were connected to clinics and property networks where Bennett Meridian had indirect influence. I had not used my father's name publicly, but my credibility, my background, and trust-connected introductions had opened doors. Adrienne had told investors he built everything alone. The review made that narrative messy, and powerful people do not like messy narratives when money is involved. His investors began asking questions. Cassandra's brand strategy firm quietly removed his testimonial from their website. Patricia stopped attending hearings. Adrienne's lawyer became more careful. Vivian became more cheerful. That terrified everyone except me. One day, during deposition, Adrienne was asked when he first learned my father was Elias Bennett. He looked exhausted. During the hearing, "Did your wife ever represent that her father had no assets?" "No." "Did she ever invite you to rely on her separate trust assets as marital property?" "No." "Did you call her father irrelevant during settlement discussions?" His jaw tightened. "I may have said something like that." Vivian looked at him over her glasses. "Did you also say she had no father to hide behind?" He closed his eyes. "Yes." "Do you regret that?" His lawyer objected. Vivian smiled. Withdrawn. But the regret sat there anyway. By then, Cassandra was gone. Not publicly, not dramatically. She simply stopped appearing. Adrienne moved from their luxury apartment into a smaller rental after legal costs grew. His company lost momentum. Investors did not leave all at once, but confidence thinned. His mother called my mother once. "I know because my mother told me." Patricia said, "Ruth, can we not help them find peace?" My mother replied, "Peace is not what people ask for after they fail to take money." Patricia cried. My mother hung up. I loved her for that. The final divorce hearing came 18 months after Adrienne first filed. By then, I was tired in a way sleep could not fully fix. Legal battles consume more than money. They eat attention, appetite, softness, and sometimes the part of you that remembers love existed before documents. But I was also clear. Clarity is expensive. I had paid. The judge ruled that the Bennett Legacy Trust assets and traceable premarital property remained mine. Adrienne's claim to the $1 million asset pool failed. He received a fair share of actual marital property, but nothing close to what he had celebrated taking. The court also recognized my contributions to certain marital business growth and adjusted division accordingly. Custody was shared with strong protections against using the children in financial or adult conflicts. Legal fees were partly shifted because of positions Adrienne's side had pursued without proper foundation after documentation was provided. The judge did not shame him. Judges rarely deliver the poetic speeches people imagine. But near the end, he said something that was enough. Marriage does not convert every asset a spouse knows about, benefits near, or later desires into marital property. Access is not ownership. Assumption is not proof. Access is not ownership. I looked at Adrienne when the judge said it. He looked down. Afterward, in the hallway, he approached me alone. No Cassandra, no Patricia, no celebration, just Adrienne, smaller and older than when this began. "Naomi," he said. I waited. "I'm sorry." "For what specifically?" He gave a sad little laugh. "You always ask that now." "I always needed to." He nodded. "For trying to take what wasn't mine. For acting like your quiet meant weakness. For mocking your father. For pretending I built everything alone. For letting Cassandra and Mom disrespect you. For turning the divorce into a punishment because you wouldn't leave quietly." That was more honesty than I expected. Maybe losing teaches some people language. "I hear you," I said. He swallowed. "Did you ever love me?" That question hurt more than it should have. "Yes," I said, deeply. His eyes filled. Then why didn't you trust me with the truth about your father? I looked at him for a long moment. Because love and trust are not the same thing. I loved you before I knew what you would do with access. He looked away. That answer broke something in him. Or maybe it only showed what was already broken. He whispered, I would have handled it differently if I knew. I smiled sadly. That is exactly why you were not told. Because a person who treats you well only after discovering power is not safe. A person who respects your boundary only after meeting your lawyer is not humble. A person who stops humiliating you only after learning your father's name is not changed by love. He is changed by fear. I walked away. My mother waited near the courthouse steps. She hugged me without speaking. I held on longer than I expected. I'm tired, I whispered. I know. Did Dad really think this would happen one day? She pulled back and touched my cheek. Your father thought money attracts tests. He built the trust because he knew love without respect becomes a doorway for thieves. I looked at the courthouse. And you? I hid you because I wanted you to know who you were before the world told you what your name was worth. For the first time, I fully understood her, not as a child angry about what she had not been given, as a woman who had nearly been devoured by a man who would have loved my inheritance more loudly than he loved me. Thank you, I said. She cried. So did I. Life after divorce was quieter than people imagine. No immediate fireworks, no dramatic shopping, no revenge mansion. I returned home to Lily and Micah, made dinner, helped with homework, and sat on the bathroom floor after they slept, because my body finally understood the fight was over. The next morning, I woke up early and made coffee. The house was peaceful. Not happy yet. Peaceful. That was enough. I slowly rebuilt. Not financially. My finances were protected. Emotionally. That took longer. Adrienne had not left me poor, but he had left bruises on my sense of being known. There is a strange loneliness in realizing someone slept beside you for years and never truly understood you. Worse, he understood the parts that served him and ignored the parts that protected you. I began working more actively with the Bennett Legacy Trust, not as a hidden beneficiary anymore, but as a director of its community investment wing. My father's name had opened one courtroom door. Now I wanted it to open others. We funded legal clinics for women protecting premarital property, small business owners facing spouse-related financial abuse, and children of wealthy or complicated families who needed privacy and protection. I created a program called the Locked Foundation Initiative. Vivian hated the name. Everything with you is doors and locks now, she said. Yes. Fine. It's accurate. The program taught people that love should not require financial blindness. Prenups. Trusts. Separate property. Business documentation. Custody planning. Estate protection. Digital security. Family pressure. The emotional guilt of being called secretive when you are actually being careful. Women came to our sessions embarrassed. They left with folders. Vivian called that progress. My mother joined one panel and told the story of hiding my identity. Not every detail. Enough. She said, protection is not the same as control. I made mistakes too, but the goal was never to make my daughter small. It was to make sure no one married her foundation before they loved her character. That line went viral. Adrienne saw it. He sent a message through the parenting app. Your mom explained it well. I did not respond. Not every statement needs a door. The children adjusted. Lily was 10 when the divorce finalized. Micah was 8. They knew some things, not all. I told them their grandfather had left family protections, and adults had disagreed about money. I did not tell them their father had mocked the dead man who protected them. One day, Lily asked, Is Grandpa Elias why people act weird around us now? I sat beside her. Sometimes people act weird around money. Do we have a lot? I thought carefully. You have security. That is different from having permission to be careless. She nodded slowly. Did Dad know? No. Would he have stayed if he knew? The question hit me hard. Children see through walls adults pretend are solid. I don't know, I said honestly, but I want people in our lives who stay because of who we are, not what they might get. She leaned against me. Okay? Micah cared less about trust structures and more about whether we could still order pizza on Fridays. Yes. We could. Adrienne became a better co-parent over time, maybe because court humbled him, maybe because losing Cassandra and public shine forced him to face the children without an audience. He showed up more, listened more, argued less. He never became someone I wanted back. But he became someone I could share parenting emails with without needing to breathe into a paper bag afterward. That is not romance. But it is progress. Years later, Adrienne attended Lily's school awards night. She won a writing prize for an essay about family stories and hidden truths. After the event, Adrienne stood beside me while Lily took photos with friends. She writes like you, he said. She writes like herself. He smiled faintly. True. Then, after a pause, he said, I told her about something this weekend. I stiffened. What? That I made mistakes in the divorce. Not details, just that I let anger and pride guide me. I looked at him carefully. Why? She asked why you and I don't sit together at events. And you said? I said, because sometimes adults can respect each other and still need distance because of old hurt. That was a good answer. I hated that it was good. Thank you, I said. He nodded. I'm trying not to make you carry all the truth alone anymore. That sentence softened something. Not enough for closeness. Enough for peace. My father's name became public eventually, but on my terms. Not as gossip from divorce filings. Not as a scandal. The trust released a formal history of Elias Bennett's work, his privacy, his protective structures, and his daughter's leadership in the new community programs. I gave one interview. The reporter asked, "Why stay private for so long?" I answered, because a name with money attached can become louder than the person carrying it. My mother wanted me to hear myself first. That was true. The reporter asked, "Do you regret not telling your ex-husband?" I paused. No, the end of my marriage proved the wisdom of the boundary. That quote also spread. People had opinions. Of course. Some said spouses should tell everything. Some said I was right. Some said Adrienne was greedy. Some said I trapped him. Some said my father sounded brilliant. Some said my mother was controlling. The internet loves simple boxes. Real life does not fit. Here is the truth. Marriage needs honesty. But honesty does not mean handing over every protected asset to someone who has not proven respect. Transparency does not require financial nakedness before emotional safety exists. And privacy is not deception when the law is clear, the assets are separate, and the other person is not being asked to build on a lie. Adrienne was not harmed by not knowing my father's full wealth. He was harmed by assuming he could take what was never his. That is different. The $1 million he celebrated taking was never his victory. It was bait he created for his own greed. The judge's question simply pulled the hook into the light. Who is your wife's father? A simple question. But under it were deeper ones. Who protected her before you arrived? Who taught her value before you tried to price her? Who built the foundation you mistook for weakness? Who left documents where you expected emptiness? Who loved her enough to make sure a man like you could not take everything just because she once loved you? My father, Elias Bennett. A man I barely remembered in pictures but came to know through structures, through trust language, through letters, through quiet protections, through my mother's sacrifice, through the locked doors that saved me when my own marriage became unsafe. On the 5th anniversary of the divorce, I visited my father's grave. My mother came with me. We brought white flowers. I stood there for a long time, looking at his name carved into stone. I used to be angry I didn't know more, I said. My mother nodded. I know. I still wish I had known him. So do I. But I know what he did. She smiled sadly. Yes. I placed my hand on the stone. "Thank you," I whispered. "Not for the money alone. For the foresight, for the protection, for knowing love could need lawyers one day, for refusing to leave his daughter exposed to people who might mistake marriage for access." My mother cried quietly beside me. I took her hand. For years, she had carried the burden of being misunderstood by me. That day, I understood more. Not everything, but enough. He celebrated taking my $1 million in divorce. Until the judge asked, "Who is your wife's father?" But the real story is not only about a hidden wealthy father. It is about foundation. The kind people cannot see. The kind built before the wedding. Before the betrayal. Before the courtroom. Before the girlfriend in cream. Before the mother-in-law in pearls. Before the man in the hallway smiling like he had won. A foundation can be money, yes. But it can also be documentation, education, a mother's warning, a lawyer's discipline, a separate account, a deed in your name, a trust no one can bully, a memory of who you were before someone tried to divide you like property. If you are listening and you are building a life with someone, hear me clearly. Love deeply, but document clearly. Share generously, but protect wisely. Tell the truth, but do not confuse truth with surrendering every key before trust has earned the door. If something belonged to you before marriage, understand it. If your family left you assets, protect them. If you build a business, keep records. If you help your spouse, save proof. If someone mocks your family, your background, your quiet, your dead, or your boundaries, pay attention. Arrogance always reveals itself before greed makes its move. And if someone celebrates taking from you before the truth has finished speaking, let them celebrate. Sometimes celebration is evidence of intention. Sometimes their smile becomes the thing the judge remembers. Sometimes the hallway victory becomes the courtroom warning. Today, I live peacefully. Not secretly, peacefully. The Bennett name is no longer a locked room, but it is still a protected one. Lily and Micah know their grandfather's story, not as a fairy tale about wealth, but as a lesson about responsibility. Adrienne knows it too, better than anyone. He knows that the woman he tried to empty came from a foundation he never bothered to understand. He knows that my quiet was not weakness. It was protection. He knows that my mother was not just a modest woman with a handbag in the gallery. She was the gatekeeper of a legacy he could not touch. And me? I know that my worth was never in the $1 million. Not in the trust. Not in my father's name. Not in the judge's question. Those things protected me. They did not create me. I was Naomi Bennett before the courtroom learned my father's name. I was Naomi Bennett when I helped build Adrienne's company. I was Naomi Bennett when he underestimated me. I was Naomi Bennett when he celebrated too soon. And I was Naomi Bennett when the judge looked over his glasses and asked the question that ended the performance. Who is your wife's father? The answer did not just cost Adrienne $1 million. It cost him the story he had written about me. Weak wife, dependent woman, no backing, no power, no father. Wrong. My father was Elias Bennett. My mother was Ruth Bennett. My lawyer was Vivian Hart. My foundation was documented, and my silence was never empty.